Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. Quick info before we begin. Today's video has 2 stories and both of them have updates. Now let's get started. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user RNDWiki. People don't seem to like my 30 female partner, 30 male, and I don't know why. This feels like an odd post to write as I think about all of this, so I will try my best to set the scene. My partner, 30 male, didn't really have any friends before meeting me at university. He was kind of friends with some of the nerdy kids in grade school, but I guess at one point they all shunned him and no one wanted to be friends with him. So he was all alone till he moved and stayed away for university. As far as I know from his family and cousins, he never did anything to deserve the treatment he got. He did really well in school. He was the state triple jump champion. He's quite attractive and generally a sweet and calm person. Then he met me and my friend group during university. We are all, except for him, either gay or lesbian, though I am obviously the one bi girl in the group. He was always a great friend to us and was basically our protector when we went out to straight bars and clubs. He never tried to make a move on any of us and was always a great conversationalist, a super smart guy, etc. We all couldn't believe we were his first real friends. We even set him up with girls, and he had a couple of relationships. Eventually, all the partying caught up with him and he figured the drinking and drugs that were common in our friends weren't really for him. Since that came about, we started our relationship, and it's hard to imagine why he didn't have any friends growing up. He's basically been the perfect partner to me. He's become quite successful without much effort. He's a board member of a charity, he's really active and has a lot of different interests. But what I've noticed is that over and over again, he tried to make friends with people he meets through his interests or through work, and he's either basically shut down right away or over time they have said or done things to him that make him realize that he has yet again been excluded intentionally. The most recent example was that a group of his co-workers, he does consult on top of his board position, planned to go to a UFC event in Vegas without saying anything to him, and he is probably the biggest fan of that in his office. We go 2 to 3 times a year because he gets tickets and backstage because of his board position. Well, it was quite a surprise to him to see a bunch of his co-workers who essentially hid from him that they were going. One of them was like, "Oh, we didn't know you'd be up for a trip like this," despite my partner telling them in the past that he'd get them tickets if they wanted to go with him. This is just one example of what I am feeling is a pattern. I don't understand what's going on, but it is starting to make me wonder if there is something about him that I just don't see, or if he acts differently when he's not around me. I've even started noticing this with my own family. Despite my partner having basically renovated our entire house by himself, with my help as well, and him having a master's in engineering, I see no one in the family asking him for advice or help with any do-it-yourself projects, despite him offering to help multiple times. My brother-in-law even paid money to a contracting company that massively overcharged him, and their engineers made a couple of errors that my partner eventually caught. I finally asked my parents if there was anything wrong with him that I don't see, and all they could really say was, "Oh, don't be silly, he's fine." Yet I've heard many times my father extol what a great guy my sister's husband is, despite him being the stereotypical used car salesman. Really though, I feel so lucky to have met this guy, and I can see it hurts him the way people treat him despite what he projects outwardly. I don't know what to do, because the more and more I see this, the thought creeps into my mind that something must be wrong for people to act the way they do towards him, and I just can't wrap my head around what's going on. Well, OP, from what you say, this is very odd because your boyfriend seems like a very delightful person. Or maybe you have rose-tinted glasses and there are a few things that you're just not seeing through the filters. Like for example, when you said that your brother-in-law had a job done at his house and, their engineers had a few mistakes that your partner caught. And so my question would be, well, then how did he go about it? Did he offer his help in a condescending way or backhanded way or something like that? Or maybe he's just too eager to make friends and he comes on incredibly strong and that's why he gets shut down right away. Now, if you're kind of wondering because this weird sensation that he might be secretly dangerous is creeping up, well, I wouldn't know exactly, of course, but it doesn't sound like it from what you say. I mean, you've known him for years since university and you've spoken to his family and his cousins, no red flags there, your friends know him and love him and all that. So maybe it's just a weird case that he just can't make friends except you and your friend group, and that's it. I don't know if that's a deal breaker for you, but if it isn't, well then just don't worry about it and enjoy the fact that you have an awesome partner that your friend group loves. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? What is your theory? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they had to say. Revolutionary Most 18 says, I'm going to make the assumption that there are no other red flags. I've noticed with men who don't fit the stereotype of lad, alpha, or brash, and who might have a more gentle or refined mannerism, often struggle with making other male friends, even if they have an interest like UFC or Formula 1 or football. I'm assuming based on the information given, he wouldn't find sexist, racist jokes amusing. It's a great characteristic, but often alienating to other men who will make these jokes for the banter. Honestly, I'd be assessing whether these are people you actually want to associate with. And OP responds, yeah, this sounds like him a lot. If anything, he's not the type who would ever make fun of someone obviously because of how he was treated, and any gay jokes wouldn't be well received by him, especially since he very much enjoys that I am bi. All the guy talk at his work is very much the alpha bro types. I think maybe he thinks that's who he should hang out with because they share common hobbies, but he's just not the right kind of personality for them. Twatty Maximus says, is he a one-upper? I have a brother-in-law who is a nice guy and hardworking and also likes to do everything himself, but people can't stand him long because no matter what you talk about with him, he's got a better story. It's like little man's syndrome or something. He always tries to outtalk everyone else's achievements or steers the conversation back to his projects or ideas. Doesn't take long for people finding a reason to avoid doing much with him. Bisgetti says, is he neurodivergent or a bit awkward? Also, people sometimes are suspicious of people that are genuine or well-intentioned, like, there's no way they're that nice, they're up to something. My boyfriend is a very emotionally intelligent and empathetic person, and he's had people point blank ask him why he is so nice and that it's weird. I could see why an LGBT crowd would be more accepting, being a group that has a harder time being accepted by others. It's probably really refreshing for a straight man to be so kind and understanding, but others might not appreciate or relate to that. Additional information from OP's comments. What's the red flag? Like, my thought is partly that people are just simply jealous of him. I've thought that maybe he gives off a vibe that people can't explain or they don't want to tell me why because they don't want to hurt my feelings. Like, people can see that he's very competent at work but don't seem to want to hang around him socially. But it's just that when he's around our old university friends, he's great and they all love him. He pulled away from our friend group in college because he just couldn't manage all the partying my friends and I were doing. And if he drinks too much or does any party drugs, then he's basically useless for the next day, where the rest of us are fine. So we are all still friends, but he just doesn't enjoy partying. Usually I'll go out with my friends and he will go hiking or camping for a night. But regardless, all my friends love him. We have them over for pre-drinking or dinner. It's just such a stark difference between my friends and his co-workers. And asking my dad for his honest opinion wouldn't help. I think he likes that my sister still has to rely on my parents, and my dad gets a lot of say in their decisions because of that. I guess now that I think about it, that's where my dad's sentiments come from, because my partner really prides himself on being able to do anything and take care of anything himself. Honestly, my biggest concern was maybe that he's an ass or bragger to people at work, but I'm thinking this to be less likely the case and that he probably doesn't even realize that he's not a guy's guy. He's very cerebral about everything he does, but I don't think there's any neurodivergence or Asperger's. He's not really the type to change who he is based on the situation. In that way, he's not very flexible. Alright, well, the community had different theories and OP was able to give context and information regarding all of them. And OP's last theory is that maybe he's just not a guy's guy. So let's move on to the update to see what was up and how this story ends, but before that, of course, here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now, let's move on with that update. First, I wanted to thank everyone who responded to the post I made about this. The post really blew up while I was asleep and I didn't get to interact with a number of people who posted some really insightful comments. My original post was spurred on by us trying to conceive this year, and thinking about the big changes in lifestyle for us really started making me examine our relationship internally and externally. I thought I would clarify this quickly based on some of the comments and DMs I received. Some very thoughtful, others less so. For me at least, having a child is going to mark a big shift in my life. I know that this means closing off one side of my sexuality for at least some number of years, if not permanently, and truthfully, that is what I want. But I had to be 100% sure that my partner was the right person to take this leap with. Also, I'm financially stable on my own. Prior to the pandemic, I made more than he did, so I think some might have had the impression that I was just with him for money. I would be with him even if he was poor. My concern toward my partner was that maybe the version of him I know and see wasn't the real him, because out of my friends circle, he's never really had any friends. I kept thinking maybe he was a show-off or mean to people, etc., and it was a hard feeling to shake. There were also a lot of people suggesting that he might be neurodivergent, which started to get me thinking and doing a bit of investigating. I did have a couple of contacts who I could reach out to that he's worked with in the past, and I could tease out some information without crossing any boundaries of current work, etc. Well, everything turned out to be much less eventful than imagined, but also somehow weirder. They both basically told me he's a stand-up guy and one of the most competent people they've worked with. The only thing that stood out in the end was that he is very wholesome, very professional. A lot of people think he's very religious. 4 laughing out loud smiley faces. Now I have no idea if this is the problem or not, but it made me burst out laughing when they said that because he is not religious at all, and I have no idea how anyone could get that impression of him. The only thing I could imagine is simply his work with the non-profit that he does talk about, since it's a big passion of his. Now, the neurodivergence suggestion. Honestly, I did a bunch of reading about it and watching him over the past month, and while I appreciate that a lot of people connected with that and DM'd me about that specifically, there's really nothing there to suggest to me that would be something he has or is dealing with. From what I can see all around is that he simply likes some very specific things, and I know he's not going to make conversation about team sports or the latest Marvel or Star Wars shows. So eventually, I had a conversation with him about all of this, and again, no real drama. He was feeling a lot of this himself, and to keep it short and simple, he basically said that he would be fine having no friends, but he's so happy and grateful that he has me and my friends. I just feel really lucky to be with a great man who I can trust in any situation, and it seems the feeling is mutual on his end. I really got myself worked up over a whole lot of nothing. This might be one of the last interesting or eventful updates in Reddit history, and I'm glad for that. Just one laughing out loud smiley face. P.S. What prompted me to write an update is that I just confirmed that we are going to be parents to twins. But I am also grateful to all the people who commented on the last post for helping me get through a moment of craziness. And I saw that a lot of people connected with our situation, so I wanted to give an update, even if it is a boring one. Well, OP, I certainly don't think it's a boring one because I think it's the first time that I've heard of somebody being shunned because they were just too nice and wholesome. I mean, he was nice and wholesome, and because of that, people thought he was religious, and because they thought he was religious, nobody wanted to hang out with him. And it sucks, but it is a sad commentary on today's world. But anyways, congratulations OP on your pregnancy and the fact that you've got an awesome partner. So like I said in my original commentary, just keep enjoying that. Take care OP, and thank you so much for sharing. Now let's move on to the next post that, like I said in the beginning of the video, also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user Oompa Loompa 5. Am I the a-hole for not helping my wife buy a dental office when she insisted to get a prenup before marriage? My wife and I are in our late 30s. When we were getting married, we both were making about the same. Neither of us had anything. I didn't want a prenup because I don't think that's how a marriage should work. But my wife wanted a prenup because she was going to dental school and thought when she opens her own clinic, she will make way more money than me and didn't want to share any of that. Long story short, reluctantly I agreed to the prenup that also has a provision for future assets, and we basically have had separate finances ever since. Everything is split 50-50 for the most part. Edit to clarify, 50-50 when it comes to shared expenses like groceries or going out. She doesn't pay anything toward the mortgage. She pays about 30% of the mortgage as rent each month. Recently, she has started thinking about opening her own clinic and wants to buy a place that costs about $2 million give or take, including any potential renovations and all the equipment. She won't get approved for a $2 million loan and does not have 20% to put down, not to mention she would need some buffers as well to cover operational costs and staff for a couple of months until business picks up. Part of it is understandable. University and dental school were expensive and she started working later in life. But she also, in general, spent money liberally. I graduated at 22 and over the years bought 3 houses and save up regularly to buy more rental properties and invest in stocks. I can help her get a loan and pay her down payment, but since she wanted a prenup when we got married, I don't see why I should just give her or even lend her that much money. I told her I can help her with the loan, pay the down payment, be a co-signer and pay the expenses until it is profitable if she splits the clinic 50-50 and no need to pay me back. Or I can loan her the money at 8% interest. She started losing it and shocked at how I would even think about trying to take a percentage of her business. Friends and family say we are married and she is my wife, so I should help her succeed in her career and give her the money interest-free and she will pay me back whenever she can. I don't share this sentiment. I think she made it clear how she wanted our financial lives to be when she insisted on a prenup. Also, people might say 8% is a lot, but keep in mind she can't get a loan on her own. If I'm risking $600,000 on a down payment and expenses for a few months when no bank would, this is the interest rate I would feel comfortable with and she should be able to pay it back. The way buying a dental clinic works is they are valued based on how much cash flow they have currently, and based on the clinic she is looking at, she should be able to make good money. Anyways, people around us are saying I'm being unreasonable and greedy. I disagree. Wife wanted a prenup and separate finances. She is getting just that. I don't see why I should help her with no benefit to me. So, am I the a-hole? Well, OP, of course not, you're not the a-hole. It is just fair. She said she wanted a prenup because she didn't want to share in any future profit. Why should you share your profit to help cover what she needs to start her own business without getting anything in return? It is just a business investment. I think the two options that you presented her are more than fair. You are the startup capital, you get 50% of the initial enterprise, or else she can just pay you back with an 8% interest. So I honestly don't understand why people are calling you unreasonable and greedy. You're just using the tools at your disposal. That prenup is one of them. But regardless, this is something that you and your wife need to talk out, but just know that you are not the a-hole. And what do you guys think about this situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Braindusters says, not the a-hole because prenuptial addresses future assets. She literally made this situation. She wants to take from you but not risk you benefiting from it. The give and take either works both ways or it doesn't. Poppy Goose says, this is depressing to hear. Why are you even married? I understand a prenup covering anything you have before marriage, but not after. After is what you build together, and this new business should be built together and shared together if you're both contributing to it. I guess not the a-hole, but still a weird situation to even be in. Tolos Bronze says, not the a-hole. She wanted things split. This is the result of things being split. I am not financially minded, but I think your suggestion of a loan with an interest percentage or a percentage of her business being in your hand seems fair, though I don't know enough to evaluate the fairness of 8%. Okay, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole, and they also brought up some pretty interesting points. Anyways, let's move on to the update to see what happened next and how the story ends. A lot of people have been asking for an update even to this day, but 2 weeks after I made my post, I got a new phone and lost access to this account. Anyways, finally remembered my username and guessed the password a few times last week, and here we are. Buying a dental practice, getting loans, and sorting things out between me and my wife took time. After a bunch of back and forth with my wife and weeks of sleeping in separate rooms after we fought, we finally got down to talking about what the point of the prenup was in the first place and what were our thoughts about our marriage and our kid. We didn't see ourselves ever getting divorced and still loved each other, so after some convincing the wife that the prenup is worthless if we didn't intend to ever get divorced, we came to the conclusion that the prenup isn't serving any purpose and decided to cancel it altogether, so the whole prenup business is gone for good now. Following that, now that everything is 50-50 by default, I'm helping with the expenses as stated in the original post, and we are back to our lives to celebrate this new chapter. We are gonna have a second kid, which is exciting, although scary at the same time, since we are in our late 30s now. We always wanted 2 kids. I don't think I mentioned that in the post that we have 1 kid together, but I think I mentioned it in a comment. Anyways. Well, OP, congratulations on all fronts. You've got a solid relationship with your wife, a second kid on the way, which you guys are really excited about, and you guys are planning for the future and working together towards it. That's awesome. So here's wishing your whole family all the best in the future. Take care, OP, and thank you for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button.